Howdy folks, I'm John from Whitewater Vans, and in this video we're going to talk about what it costs to build a van. I made a quick video recently where I said it was $15,000 to $35,000 to build a van, and I want to go in the details of what that is. Obviously, you can build a van for a lot less than that. You just decide what you want, you buy the materials, and you build it for whatever it's going to cost you. I'm going to show you what it cost me when I put together a van and what goes into that cost. So I'm going to roll through a spreadsheet and talk about each of the components that I put into the van. The reason I'm doing this is because I have a new van coming next week, and I'm going through the process of ordering right now, and I thought this would be something that people want to know about. How do I order, and how do I gauge what it's going to cost and figure all that stuff out? So I have a spreadsheet with about, 125 to 130 items on there, and I go through. It's organized into like the base, the water system, the electrical system, all the different components that I'm going to put into the van, and then a whole bunch of different add-ons. The add-ons are sort of take them or leave them depending on what you want to add to your van, and they can be fairly expensive. So we're going to go through the spreadsheet. We're going to add up the different parts and pieces, and I'm going to talk about what goes into it. Okay, here I am at my spreadsheet. I check the boxes for the things that I feel are needed, and then as I go through the purchase process, I check off that I've ordered those items so I can keep track of what I need, what I've got, what's coming. I also have this little summary at the top which shows the sum of all the things I've added. So the first thing I just checked at the top of that list is the 2 kilowatt S-bar heater. One of the first things I always make sure I put in a van is a heater. And I've organized these, at least in the base, with the more expensive items on top so we can take a look at those. Oftentimes, one of the first things you need to figure out is the windows. This base set of components is all of the things that goes into the shell. So it's windows, fan, it's the floor, the ceiling, the walls, and all of those items. So we're going to go ahead and add at least one large window here behind one side. We'll want 48 inches of cabinets, a couple of bunk windows in the back. I like to use decorative black L-track along the walls and the ceiling. It's bolted into the frame of the vehicle, but then I can add on any variety of components afterwards, like the bed, the galley, the cabinets, upper cabinets. They all bolt into this L-track, so we're going to include that. I use coin dot flooring on the floor to finish off the floor. I've got a whole separate video on the wiring for the shell of the van if you want to check out everything that goes into the wiring. I use two types of insulation, Thinsulate and Havelock wool. The Havelock wool tucks nicely into little nooks and crannies and all the small areas, and then the Thinsulate fits nicely across like the ceiling, the roof panels, and the larger panels on the walls. So a couple of kinds of insulation. I like to upholster the walls of my van when possible. It adds a nice layer of soundproofing and makes sort of a nice soft interior. But there's tweed fabric and Landau foam that gets associated with that. I like to put in a headliner shelf. Scroll down a little bit more here. There's the Max Air fan with a mounting plate, the Baltic birch for the flooring, a dimmer switch module so I can turn on and off the ceiling lights from multiple locations, and some sound deadening. There's a variety more components, but this is from $100 and up. So these are the more expensive components. Then there's a lot of little things that just add up. So far, we're at $7,700 just for kind of these base components. Obviously, this is what I put into my vans and the vans for my clients. You can choose to add some of these features, don't add these features. You might find cheaper versions of these that you can find elsewhere. I'm just showing approximately what these items cost when I buy them to put into a van. I'm going to scroll all the way down through the base and select all these because there's a lot of smaller components here that include things like stains, caulking, glue, screws, nails, all kinds of tape, all kinds of little things that are going to go into the van. So we're going to select all those. Now we're at $8,800. So $8,800 is the materials that just completes the shell of the van. Now, granted, that has, the windows and the fans, and everything you need for a nice finished floor, finished ceiling. It's got the puck lights in the ceiling. All the wiring's been run. This is the shell of the van, but there's 8,800 so far. Now we'll scroll down to the next set of components. There's a variety of things that goes into the bed, including a queen size mattress. All of these together wind up being about $500. So there's the components for the bed I just selected. Solar winds up being about another $500. For the panels themselves, it winds up being about $100 per 100 watts. And so you can decide how much you like on top of your vans. I try to put about 400. Sometimes I'll do 3, sometimes I'll bump it up to 6. Depends on the client and what they're going to be using, but we're going to add in the solar components there. Then we get into the water system. Now, I use a 33-gallon water tank and a 4-gallon hot water tank. I use Baltic birch to build the cabinet that it goes in, and then there's a variety of smaller components like the mixing valve, water pumps, filters, pump silencing kit, just helps things be quieter. This winds up being about $1,000. All of these components that add up the water system, tank sensors, gauges, that winds up being about another $1,000 there. We'll look at the summary of this in just a moment. And then the electrical system is typically one that is expensive in my vans because I use some really high-end components like lithium-ion batteries, if not even the really high-end lithium-ion batteries like Victron or Battleborn. Now you can get by here with a much smaller system. You might be able to buy one of the Bluetti or the EcoFlow sort of Delta systems where you could just have this portable power system that provides what you need for your van. Or nothing. I mean, it's up to you to build what you want in, but this is what I put in. And this electrical system here is about $9,000. This is with all Victron components, a 3-kilowatt inverter, the Lynx battery management system. It's a top-of-the-line, really good system. It's got a touchscreen display to see all the details and control it from inside at your control panel. Serbo GX is sort of that central monitoring hub, brain, and again, Baltic birch for the cabinet that it sits in. If we scroll down and select all of those electrical components right there, then let's go up to the top and see where we're at. We're at about $20,000, $19,866. So that is now included all of our shell, ceiling, floor, walls. It has the full electrical system and the full water system. Now this is with a high-end electrical system. Again, you can dial this back depending on what your needs are. I have a separate video on the EcoFlow 5-kilowatt power kit. That runs about $6,500 depending on where you find it. So you could take $2,500 off of this right now just by using that EcoFlow kit. I'm going to go down past the electrical here. So there's a few things you could add for the bench. If you want to build in a bench, it's mostly just some cabinetry. And then you've got a galley. I put in about a $2,000 galley. That includes a butcher block countertop, an induction cooktop. It includes about half of that cost is the fridge, which is, that's a 4.6 cubic foot fridge. It's 130 liters. I really like a nice, fairly big fridge in the van, not just kind of a cooler. Obviously, your mileage may vary with how you choose to build out your van, but when I add all those components in, before we get into the add-ons, we're now at $22,464. So we'll call that $22,500 of just the materials. Now this is a nice build. It has really nice components throughout the inside. It's fairly expensive. You could dial back many of these components, maybe leave a few of them out. That's where I come up with maybe a $15,000 build on the lower end. It still has most of these features I'm talking about, but it might have some lower cost components associated with them, like that electrical system. Maybe you just go with a $2,500 portable EcoFlow, and there's $7,000 off right there. Now let's talk about where the additional stuff jumps in, the add-on components. They're at the bottom here, and they can get fairly expensive. If you notice here at the very top, I've got a sound system, and I've got it at $5,000. Obviously, you could do a sound system for less than that. I have a premium system that I put in my vans if that's one of the things that the client wants. I have a local installer that does that, and it runs me about $5,000. Now that includes the labor for that particular piece because I have a third party put that in, but it's $5,000 for a sound system. The suspension kit, if you want to add that, is about $4,800. Again, I take this to a shop that does these specifically, and that includes the labor on those two components. But you can see that's almost $10,000 if you wanted those two components added on. Then there's air conditioners. I often use a pneumatic cooling. It's a more expensive model, very premium model. It's $3,500 roughly. You can get air conditioners for more like $1,000 to $1,500, depending on if you're going with an AC, like an alternating current, or if you're going to use a DC model or a different brand than the pneumatic cooling. If you want larger tires and rims, and you're going to get 5 of them, that could be $3,500. A roof rack is a couple $1,000s. Bug screens can be nice. I'm just going to kind of roll through these. You can see the costs associated with each one. I like an awning from time to time, and that I like to use a Fiamma awning. They run $1,000 to $1,500 depending on the size. A cell phone range booster. Some clients might want a Starlink system. Running boards to make it easier to get in and out. Window covers to get privacy and insulation. If you want larger tires and wheels, then you'll need a trim kit and a larger wheel well kit, at least on a Sprinter. You may not need that on other vehicles. A tow hitch, light bars. So up on top, you might want lights off the front, the side door, or the back. Some folks like some Baja lights up front, or even a bumper. Swivel seats, this is a pair of them. This is a more expensive set, but pay attention when you get swivel seats to the amount that it raises up the seat. I use a pair that only have about a 3/4 of an inch raise. Many of them can be 1 inch to 1.5 inches, and it just makes it fairly uncomfortable. Your feet are dangling, or your passenger's feet are dangling when you're driving around. Door tire carriers, or those rear door racks that hold your bikes or expedition boxes, those can add up pretty quickly. Right there is almost $5,000 just in materials for those. Now, if you go to a website like Alvans, you'll see it's not $2,400, but you need to add in tax, you need to add in shipping, and for these components on the rear doors, you may need to add in 180-degree hinges. So take all those things into consideration when you plan out what those costs are going to be. Bike racks and a ladder. Let's just take a look. If we were to select all of these additional add-on components and add them to the cost of our van, it adds up pretty quickly. Our $22,000 van is now $56,000, and that's just the materials. In my experience, the cost of a build, like if you take it to a shop to have it built, the cost of the build is going to be approximately twice the cost of the materials. So if you imagine you've got $20,000 in materials, you might be looking at a $40,000 total build. If this van here has $56,000 in materials, this might be a $100,000 build. So that's just a rule of thumb, a rough guideline that you can think about for what it's going to cost you if you take your van to a builder to have that built out. I would plan, if you're a DIYer and you're going to be doing your first van, I would plan somewhere in the range of 400 to 600 hours. You just never know until you go through it how much time it's really going to take. I know some of you are going to get this done way faster than that. And if you put together a system that's got $5,000 worth of material and you're really handy, you might have a $5,000 van that you got done in a month. You just never know. It's up to you and the things that you put into it. I hope that this video has given you a general outline of my process for understanding what goes into the van, how much it's going to cost, and getting all that stuff purchased and ordered right at the very start so that as I'm building the van, I know that I've got these things either right there in the shop or I know that they're on the way fairly soon. I'm getting ready to build a whole van from start to finish, and I would love to take you along for that journey. Subscribe to the channel, like this video if it helped you at all, and I hope to see you on some of the next ones. There was also quite a bit of interest in my van toilet showdown, and many folks asked to see a composting toilet showdown, which I'm putting together right now. So again, subscribe to the channel and you'll get updates when that composting toilet showdown comes out, to look at the different types of composting toilets. Thanks a bunch. Hope to see you on the road.